All right, so we are studying inherited traits and learned behaviors. And I know you've watched a video, but I wanted to explain the main ideas. So in this unit, you are going to have to be able to differentiate. That means tell the difference between your inherited traits and learned behaviors. And we will be looking at organisms other than humans. Okay, so I put 2 inherited traits on the left side of the slide. The 2 graphics that are on the right side would be learned behaviors. So I want you to think about what's the difference. All right, the eye color and the flower petal color would both be inherited because the offspring, which that simply just means the babies, obtain those characteristics at birth from their parents. Okay, on the right side, there's a guy playing a guitar and a girl riding a bicycle. Those actions are not something an organism is born knowing how to do. Okay, so those are learned behaviors. So we're going to go through our slides that I've created and make sure we have a good understanding. All right, so inherited traits, like I said, are given to you from your parents. And these are all in your DNA, your genes. Okay? Every living thing has different characteristics that make them unique. So no 2 human beings, no 2 lions, no 2 flowers are exactly the same. When we're talking about inherited traits, we're usually going to be looking at physical features. Oftentimes they're going to be body structures. So for plants, it could be the shape of a leaf. It could be the thorns. It could be the flower petal color. Think about the Canadian flag. That red leaf on the Canadian flag is a maple leaf. And every maple tree we could identify because of that particular shape. Color of fur. On an animal, let's think about panda bears, black and white fur. That color of fur is kind of similar to a human's color of hair, right? That is something that they get from their parents, and it's passed on to the offspring. Okay? There are such things as behaviors that an organism is born knowing how to do, and those are actually called instincts. So I don't want you to think that everything that's inherited is a body structure. There are inherited behaviors, like I said, that are called instincts. So a good example would be a spider spinning a web. When a spider is born, that is something they automatically know how to do. For a human, a baby crying would be a good example of an instinct. In fact, doctors want the babies to cry when they're born so that they can make sure their lungs are working okay. All right, these are some examples of inherited traits. So some animals, like horses and dogs, there are lots of them, pigs, have 4 legs, okay? They're born that way. Barking would be an instinct. Dogs don't go and practice or learn how to bark. That is a behavior that a dog is born knowing how to do. The shape of a nose, okay? Ours are usually combinations of our parents. I already mentioned the flower petal color, so that pink flower we can see in this picture. And then I've already mentioned the ability to cry. That would be an inherited behavior. All right, learned behaviors are actions that develop or are acquired after an organism is born. And I like to say it this way. I don't like to say that learned behaviors are learned. You get these things or acquire these things through observation, which simply means you've used your 5 senses. Maybe you saw something, smelled something, touched something, heard something, tasted something, okay? It could be practice, like riding a bike, or it could be from an experience. These are not things you get from your parents. Now, you may have some learned behaviors that you have in common with your parents, but that's usually because of experience. So here would be some examples. A mother bear would have to perhaps show her young, her babies, how to find berries. Okay, a dog figures out they need to stay away from an invisible fence because they experience shocks probably from their collar. Speaking English or any language is also a learned behavior. You have to hear the language, you probably have to read the language. There's a lot of practice and experience that goes on there. All right, so I just wanted to remind you that there are some traits which are characteristics that you do not inherit. These things occur after birth. So an example might be you get injured and now you have a scar. Okay, although that's probably now a part of your body, that was after you were born. So we would not call that an inherited trait. Okay, cutting your hair. If you go get a haircut, yes, you look different, but that is something you did after you were born. The picture that I've provided shows a leaf that has been eaten by perhaps a caterpillar. Okay, that was something that's acquired because once again, that leaf didn't come that way. That was like an injury to the leaf. Those are not inherited. All right, so I wanted just to summarize quickly some more examples. So the three on the left are learned behaviors. The top one says, a goldfish swims to the top when it sees someone's hand over the bowl. Well, guys, fish figure out real quickly, when their owner grabs that fish food and then they reach up to the top and they sprinkle a few bites in. Okay, through observation, sight, the fish figure out, when this person comes near me and grabs this container, I'm about to get food. And they know they need to swim to the top. Another learned behavior, a seagull that has been fed by tourists at the beach returns to the area for food. So also through observation and experience, if they've been at the beach and they've been able to get food pretty easily, they're probably going to go back. Makes it real easy to get their food. The last example I have here says a hummingbird returns to a feeder that is placed in someone's backyard. So once they've discovered that there is that bird feeder, okay, that would also be through observation, they are probably going to go back and get the food over and over again. Okay, so there are lots of learned behaviors. I could think of an example at school. When we hear the fire bell at our school ring, we know it's either a fire drill or a real fire. So we associate that noise with, we need to get in line and get out of the building. That's a learned behavior. Okay, the other side has inherited traits. So your natural hair color, not the color you dye it, but your natural hair color is an inherited trait. That is what you are born with. We already talked about the shape of a leaf. And then I included another plant example because plants are a little less obvious. Okay, roses have thorns. When they bloom or when the rose bush sprouts, I should say, they're going to have thorns, and those are meant for protection. So the big idea is that learned behaviors are acquired after birth. Inherited traits are things that an organism is born with. Okay? I hope that makes sense. We'll keep practicing.